Professor, first of all, congratulations being the President of Australian Academy of Sciences.
Well, thank you very much, Navneet, and I'm really, truly humbled and grateful for this honor. I started my life in a very small village in India. So really, without those two teachers, probably I'll be plowing the fields in India today. Rejection letters, left, right, center. Over a 3-year period, I had more than 300 rejection letters. So that's how we arrived in Australia in July 1990. Take failures as a pathway to success. And if you're not really actually failing, that means you're not really pushing yourself hard enough. You come as an immigrant, and then within, of course, 26 years or so in our arrival here, and then the country gives you the highest civilian honor. I'm really humbled and grateful. The other area in the case of dementia, what we're doing is that we're using some nano electrodes to be able to study the brain. So generally, of course, I've had the great fortune of working with not only with many collaborators all over the world and also wonderful students.
Good day, everyone. My name is Navneet Anand from Vice-Chancellor Local and Global. This week, I have been meeting the achievers of Indian heritage here in Australia. I've been fortunate enough to be with one of them today once again, Professor Chennupati Jagadish. Welcome to the show.
No, thank you very much, Navneet.
You make us all feel proud of the heritage that we come from and the country we live in, Australia. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you for having me.
Professor, first of all, congratulations being the President of Australian Academy of Sciences.
Well, thank you very much, Navneet, and I'm really, truly humbled and grateful for this honor.
So what would be your target to serve as the President for Australian Academy of Sciences?
So really, the Australian Academy of Science advises the Australian government and Australian Parliament on various aspects of science and science policy. And so really, the science has an important role to play in terms of the policy development for various areas, whether we have seen the role of science in terms of vaccinations and controlling a pandemic, for example, or dealing with pandemic. And again, climate change is another thing science plays an important role to play. In many areas of life, science really plays an important role. So my job is to really advise the government so that, first of all, investments in science and R&D takes place, because that's an important thing for the future of the country and the future of the world as well.
Being the head of an organization like Australian Academy of Sciences, what would be your first target to achieve?
My main aim is to really be able to inspire the next generation. So really, at the moment, because of COVID and also that in Australia, we got a large number of PhDs we were producing in the country, but the number of positions are very limited. So how do we really create opportunities for them and create a sense of hope for them? And if they get a position, but then the funding is always a challenge for them to do research and other things. How do we really be able to convince the government to be able to invest more in the science and R&D, research and development areas, for example? Because most of the countries, those who have invested more in R&D as per GDP, for example, and higher the amount of investment has taken place, technologically they are advancing much better, for example. So that's why it is important to really invest in R&D, for example.
I'm 100% sure with the wealth of experience that you have, Australian Academy of Science is going to achieve bigger heights from now onwards as well.
No, thank you very much, Navneet. And so again, I'm really grateful, and I never imagined when I came to Australia in July 1990, one day even I will get elected to the Academy as a fellow. And then now I get an opportunity to be able to really lead the organization. And that's really, I want to thank the Academy and its fellows. And the fellows of the Academy are the leading experts in STEM areas. And for this honor.
Tell us something about your childhood and Guntur days.
So I started my life in a very small village in India and called Vallurupalam in Krishna district near Vijayawada. And I come from a farming family. Then my father was a school teacher. And so then I used to study well. And then my father has decided when I was 10 years old that he moved to another small village called Aajkal in Telangana, now in Khammam district. So then I completed my year 7 there. And then my father wanted me to study. But then there was no school in the place where he moved to. In my own village, there was no high school. So the nearest high school was about 3 kilometers away from my home village. So then he was asking my relatives and then asking me them whether it is possible to host my son for him to do his high school. Then none of the relatives came forward saying that he can come and stay with us. So then he happened to mention this one to two of my high school teachers, happened to be his friends, and my maths teacher Chaganti Sambareddy and my English and social studies teacher Valluri Srinivasarao. So then my maths teacher said that why don't you ask him to come and stay with us?
Oh.
So I had the pleasure and honor of living with my maths teacher, who is now 87. In fact, recently he also gave interviews with Indian TV, and how proud he is, and saying some nice things. So then, because of those two teachers, I am where I am today here. So really, without those two teachers, probably I'll be plowing the fields in India today.
Now, coming from the farming family, there are a lot of challenges that come up in life. So what is the best that you have picked from that life?
So really, my father really set me from the point of view of setting high goals for myself, and really try to achieve those goals. But my maths teacher taught me the importance of discipline and hard work. My English and social studies teacher taught me the importance of being humble and honest and humility and kindness and generosity by example. So the three of them really made me what I am today. I'm so grateful to all of them, my parents as well as my teachers. Without that, means probably, as I said, look, I'll be plowing the fields in India, and I want to express my gratitude to all of them.
While doing my research on you as a subject, what I found, 300 rejections, and now the president of Australian Academy of Sciences. What an achievement.
Well, thank you very much. And so again, means I had gone off and then lived in Guntur and did my year 11 and 12. So till year 10, I used to be a very good student. But then I didn't do very well in my year 12. And as you know that when you're good in maths and science, and your parents expect you to be an engineer, but I couldn't get into engineering. So then I had gone off to Tenali and I did my bachelor's degree in physics and my MSc Tech Applied Physics Electronics. In those days, I used to apply for jobs in physics, and they used to say that you're not a physicist because you're not an MSc Pure Physics. Then I used to apply for electronics, and they used to say that you're not an engineer because none of your degrees are engineering. But now, of course, everybody accepts me both as a physicist and engineer, and then I've won awards for both of them. But that's been the thing. And then I came to Delhi and did my MPhil and PhD. Then it so happened that Sri Venkateswara College, one of the colleges of Delhi University, started the bachelor's degree in electronics. Mm-hmm. They were looking for people, those who can teach electronics, and my MSc Tech Applied Physics Electronics turned out to be a boon there. So then I was teaching and establishing facilities and all, and then in those days there were no computers, there was no internet, there were no emails, and we used to get the magazines from the overseas, the Physics Today and IEEE Spectrum, by C-mail 6 months late to the library.
Right. If there's some invention done today, by the time it reaches you, it was already late.
6 months, and also that the advertisements which they used to advertise for the positions also used to be 6 months late. But they never used to give deadlines. So then, I used to think that, okay, when there's no deadline, that probably whatever I suit is suitable for me, then I used to apply for various positions. And then I used to get rejection letters left, right, center. Over a 3-year period, I had more than 300 rejection letters. And I used to joke in those days, name a university, I got a rejection letter. So that used to be the life at that time. But it so happened that one of my friends, Professor K. Srinivas, who is now at Delhi University, who just retired last week, then he happened to go to Queen's University in Canada.
Gee.
And then he came and then he mentioned to me that Professor David Atherton, he seems to think positively about people from Delhi. Why don't you write to him? So then but the only thing is that he doesn't work in your field of semiconductors, he works in magnetics. Then I said, okay, nobody is giving me a job in semiconductors, I might as well write to him and then see what's going to happen. So then he wrote back saying that he's applying for funding, and then as and when we get the funding, we'll let you know. So then after 4 months, I got an offer letter saying that a 2-year postdoctoral fellowship to work in the physics department at Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario, and to work on magnetics. But when I arrived there, it's 1988 April. There's a big cultural change because, new country, new culture, and the cold country. Computers were just coming up, and then I had to learn about computers and everything. Then it so happened that he asked me to set up a new experiment, which of course I don't know anything about magnetism, except for undergraduate electricity magnetism course which I did in my BSc. But one can learn these things, and that's what I did. And I learned about what equipment other people are using, and then I set up the lab. And within a year, I had enough results to write a paper. And by the time I finished my 2 years, I published 10 journal papers.
Okay.
So then, the magnetics conferences are inviting me to give invited talks, and then I realized
from
that
nanotechnology to magnetics.
Semiconductors to magnetics.
Semiconductors to
so
magnetics.
Then that's how, anyway, but at least I was able to make an impact on the magnetism. Then another professor in the same department, Professor Jim Witten, and then he happened to know that I'm a semiconductor person working in magnetics. And then one day he came and asked me, Professor Jim Williams is starting a new department of electronic materials engineering at the Australian National University and Research School of Physics. And he's looking for some good people. Would you like to go to Australia?
Okay.
So that's how we arrived in Australia in July 1990 with my wife, and then our 2-month-old daughter, Laya, to Canberra with a 2-year contract.
Right.
So that's been a wonderful journey. In terms of Australia has been good to us, and then ANU has been, Australian National University has been really good to us. I'm grateful to India and also grateful to Australia, because both the countries made me what I am today.
Delhi to Australia via Canada, what a journey.
Thank you. And it's been a wonderful learning experience in life.
I have heard you saying that failures are the pathway to success.
Indeed. And in fact, lots of times young people think that when they look at somebody's resume or CV, they think that life has been a straight line. You started somewhere, you've really done very well because your life has been good to you because the world has been good to you. But in reality, life is like a wave. Ups and downs and ups and downs. You got a positive attitude, you can still ups and downs, but you're really still making progress. And I always sometimes call it as a sine wave on a positive slope for scientific terminology. But you get a negative attitude, the same ups and downs, then because of your negative attitude, it pulls you down. So that's why your attitude is very important. And I always tell people, take failures as a pathway to success. And if you're not really actually failing, that means you're not really pushing yourself hard enough. You really need to go and explore. Yes, sometimes we win, sometimes we lose, but never be afraid of failure. That means, you really never be able to achieve much if you're afraid of failure. Because of the fact that I come from a very small village in India. And so really, we come as an immigrant, and then within, of course, 26 years or so of arrival here, and then the country gives you the highest civilian honor. I'm really humbled and grateful, and I have got the deepest gratitude to various people, those who really helped me in my life.
As I understand, 26th of January, that plays a very, very special role in your life.
Yes, of course, January 26th is important for India, India's being India's National Day, and also Australia's National Day as well. And then in addition to that, my daughter got married in 2014 on January 26th to Patrick, and a lovely young man. And also that I got the Order of Australia, the AC, announced on January 26th, so that January 26th becomes special for both your countries of your origin and adopted country, as well as being national days, as well as for the family as well.
Flexible solar cells, I think they help to improve the treatment for dementia. Tell us more about it.
So there are two things, I think, so the flexible solar cells will be very useful in terms of being able to really attach them to, say, for your backpacks and other things, and then be able to really, charge your electronic devices and other things, even sometimes on your windows, and any wherever you want to be able to place them, sort of thing, lightweight flexible solar cells, that's what we're working towards. The other area in the case of dementia, what we're doing is that we're using some nano electrodes to be able to study the brain, and particularly taking the stem cells of the Alzheimer's patients, stem cells of the healthy people,
right,
and then creating mini brains, and then trying to understand the signaling behavior between both types of things, so that you can be able to really help people with the dementia in the longer term. But also when you're really putting these mini brains out of these Alzheimer's patients, for example, you can also start introducing carefully some drugs and then see which ones they're responding better. So then it can really open a lot of doors for us, not only for understanding, in the longer term, with the hope that we'll be able to also help people with dementia as well. And again, Dementia Australia Research Foundation is the one which funded that project for us.
Hope sustains life. We would be looking forward to have very, very positive results sooner than later.
Thank you.
Science is global, as you normally say. Elaborate more on that, please.
So really, there are no national boundaries for science. Say, for example, if you're studying law in India is different, law in Australia is different, law in Fiji is different, in the various parts of the world. But whereas a science, there are no national boundaries because we speak the same language of science. Because I always tell people Maxwell's equations are the same whether you're solving them in India or Australia or England or US, and it doesn't matter where you are. And then also that means the principles which we use in science are the same. So that's why I always tell people that the language of science is the same. I had the pleasure of really working with people from 30 plus countries.
How do you define good teaching?
So you really need to really start really think about who are your audience. And then you have to adapt your teaching or the lecture to the interests of the audience. If the audience interests are one thing, and then you end up teaching something different or sharing some knowledge differently, they won't feel excited about it.
Right.
So that's why how do you really create excitement in listeners? And by adapting your talk to the basic interests of the audience which you've got. Right? So in the same way, students, for example, again, when you're in a classroom, you try to give examples of the principles which you're teaching, they can relate to. Because science is everywhere. Every day we are using science from the day the minute you pick up your smartphone, there is so much of science and technology and STEM has gone into that, for example. So your ability to be able to really give examples which people can relate to can really make them to appreciate what you're teaching them as well.
While doing research, you involve a number of students to come forward and be part of that research itself. That not only helps you, at the same time, it is helping them to grow to the next level as well. How do you pick who would be doing a research on this particular topic?
So generally, of course, I've had the great fortune of working with not only with many collaborators all over the world and also wonderful students and postdoctoral fellows with whom I worked in my group. And typically my group is about 30 people. And so then I had the fortune of 65 people have finished their PhDs in my laboratory, and some of them also got PhDs in other universities because I co-supervise students as well, and also about 50 postdoctoral fellows or so. So what we do is that we ask the student, what are your interests?
Right.
So then what we do is that we try to really align the project which we are putting them onto based on their interest. Somebody may say that I want to do much more theoretical work. Mm-hmm. Somebody may say that I want to do some experimental work. Somebody may say that I want to do both. Somebody say I want to do materials. Somebody may say I want to do devices.
Gee.
So depending on the interest of the student, we really try to align our projects so thereby they are having fun. I always tell people I do science for fun. If you're not having fun, get out of it. That's what I tell people. Otherwise, it becomes a hard slog.
So your profession is your basic passion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, I tell students also, choose what you're passionate about. And then if you're having fun, good things happen automatically.
So what are the current interests as far as research goes?
Of course, globally, there's many areas which the developments are taking place. For example, we are talking about mRNA vaccines in biology, or understanding brain and developing technologies to be able to really treat people with dementia, Alzheimer's and other things at one end sort of thing. And the other end also, we're talking about artificial intelligence and nanotechnology and neurotechnologies, and a range of things are happening. So again, you choose, once if you develop the technology, you can also find multiple applications for the same thing. For example, we are really using nanowires, just to give an example. And essentially nanowires are like a diameter of like a wire, which is about 10 nanometers or 300 nanometers up to around sort of thing. The lengthwise, they're about few microns long, for example.
Right.
So we are using the same nanowires, a particular class of nanowires to make some of the smallest lasers in the world. And then they're using these nanowires for making light-emitting diodes, for example, LEDs. And then using the same nanowires for making solar cells. And the nanowires, we are using them to really be able to better understand dementia, for example. So really you can see that, means also using the same nanowires for splitting water to generate hydrogen as a clean energy source.
Right.
So that's why the basic understanding of the science which you're doing is very important. Once we get a good understanding of this science, and then they also apply this one to various applications, and then they can find lots of interest from the community as well.
I still remember my school days. Physics, chemistry were the two subjects I used to run away, but we ended up being at CSIO and completing our education from there. Talking to Professor Chennupati Jagadish, are you scared of anything in life?
No, not really. Not really. I mean, so I'm always willing to learn something new because, I studied physics and I studied electronics, and, so basically we cover physics, chemistry, material science, and electronic engineering. And so nowadays also doing chemical engineering, for example, and also doing neuroscience. So actually learning is fun. Getting into new areas, and of course, when somebody says that Jagadish is an expert in neuroscience, I say that I always tell people I'm a student of neuroscience. When you have that sort of thinking, you always, as a student, lifelong, you're always learning something new. That's what keeps you young and active as well.
Having achieved this much of heights in this life, what is still on the wish list?
I never really aimed for something. I always said, look, I want to really put my head down and do good work and let my work speak for itself. So I really try to support people from various parts of the world. For example, on average, I try to write 2 to 3 references per week. That means it costs you time and effort, but then I feel that, look, it's my job to really inspire and help other people sort of thing, because, my teachers and various people in my life helped me. So that means it's my job to give something back. So that's one of the reasons also my wife Vidya and I've started an endowment to really help people sort of thing. What is my wish list? Help more people.
Wonderful. What a conversation. I absolutely enjoyed it, and I'm going to cherish it for the rest of my life as well. But before we conclude, what would be your message for all the future scientists?
Well, choose something you're passionate about and have great fun. Believe in yourself. If you don't believe yourself, nobody is going to believe you. And work hard, work smart. Also develop the ability to work as part of a team, and also develop good communication skills both in the written and oral form. So thereby you can achieve anything in life. I'm a strong believer of that. If you believe in yourself, you work hard and smart, anything is possible in life. A boy like me who started in a small village in India and studied in front of a kerosene lamp till I finished my year 7, and so lived with my maths teacher to be able to finish my high school, then for you, well, sky is the limit. I'm really humbled and grateful for this opportunity to really speak to you.
Thank you so much, Professor Jagadish.
Thank you very much.
जी हाँ, आज हमने प्रोफेसर चन्नुपति जगदीश से की बातचीत. मैं आपका नवनीत. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much.
Fiji Times. Be with the times. One-stop answer to your Australian education and visa matters. GEMCO Sydney. Dream big, achieve big.